He said, I want to look like my Aunt Manda.
A reality star from the TLC show 1000. LB Sisters in Webster County native pleads guilty to drug charges following a September arrest at a West Tennessee safari park. Amy Slaton Halterman and Brian Lavorne were arrested after Crockett County, Tennessee sheriff's deputies responded to a report that Halterman was bit by a camel at the park. When deputies arrived, they say, they discovered marijuana and illegal mushrooms in the pair's vehicle where children were also inside. They were sentenced to over 11 months on the charges. They must also pay a $1,000 fine, complete an alcohol and drug assessment, and complete a state certified parenting class. £1,000. Amy Slaton's arrest explained. Sisters, Amy Slaton's arrest explained. Who has custody of her kids? Gage Glenn after the incident. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting video. This is Jennifer from 90 Day Insider bringing you the latest updates, drama, and behind the scenes stories you don't want to miss. Let's dive right in. The reason behind 1000 LB. Sister star Amy Slaton's arrest has finally come to light, along with details about who currently has custody of her sons, Gage and Glenn Halterman. Following the zoo incident, Amy and her sister Tammy gained fame when they began appearing on the reality show in 2020. Back then, Amy looked very different, weighing 408 pounds, determined to become a mother. She worked hard to lose weight, eventually making that dream a reality. Amy and Michael Halterman were married for 4 years and became parents to sons Gage and Glenn. Over time, Amy felt Michael wasn't pulling his weight when it came to parenting and helping around the house, which eventually led to their divorce. Ahead of 1,000 pounds sister season 7, Amy revealed she had met someone new through social media. Amy and Brian Lavorne hit it off instantly after meeting at a concert. They bonded in the mosh pit, singing together and grabbing street tacos afterward. Amy says that night marked the beginning of their R.
Facing the unthinkable losing her kids. TLC buried it, but the truth is finally coming out. The footage begins without drama, without music, without the exaggerated pacing that usually defines reality television. There is no build-up, no warning, no hint that what is about to unfold will become one of the most disturbing moments ever captured during the filming of 1000 Pound Sisters. The camera is already rolling when Amy Slaton enters the room. Her posture slumped, her eyes unfocused, her hands shaking slightly as she lowers herself into a chair she has sat in hundreds of times before. To viewers, this would have looked like just another production meeting, another routine scene designated to move the story forward. But according to multiple insiders who later witnessed the raw, unedited footage, this moment marked the beginning of the day Amy Slaton emotionally collapsed in front of the cameras after confronting the possibility of losing her children. At this point in filming, Amy's life was already under immense pressure. Publicly, she was portrayed as struggling but hopeful, a young mother juggling weight loss, parenting, marriage troubles, and fame. Privately, however, sources say the cracks were growing deeper by the week. Production schedules had intensified, personal stresses were mounting, and Amy's mental health was reportedly deteriorating in ways that concerned both her family and those closest to the show. What viewers never knew was that this particular day was not originally meant to focus on Amy's emotional state at all. It was meant to be informational, procedural, and brief. Instead, it became something no one in that room was prepared for. According to individuals present during filming, Amy was informed on camera that certain ongoing issues in her life had triggered serious concerns from multiple directions. While no official custody ruling had yet been made, the conversation centered on the very real risk that if conditions did not change quickly, her ability to maintain full custody of her children could be challenged. Those words, sources say, hit Amy with the force of a physical blow. Her face reportedly went pale. She stopped responding for several seconds. The only sound in the room was the hum of the camera equipment and the faint movement of crew members shifting uncomfortably in place. Amy had always worn her emotions openly. Fans knew her as someone who cried easily, laughed loudly, and reacted instinctively. But what happened next, according to those who saw the footage, was not her usual emotional release. It was something far more alarming. Amy reportedly whispered almost to herself that she had already lost everything once, and that she couldn't survive losing them, too. Then, without warning, she broke down. Witnesses say Amy slid out of the chair and onto the floor, her body curling inward as if trying to disappear. Her breathing became erratic. She sobbed uncontrollably, clutching her chest, repeatedly asking whether this was really happening and whether the cameras were still on. They were. One crew member later described the moment as watching someone realize their worst nightmare in real time. Another said it felt wrong to even be in the room. What makes this footage so significant and so controversial is not just Amy's breakdown itself, but the decision to keep filming as it happened. Reality television has long thrived on emotional vulnerability, but several insiders say this crossed a line none of them had anticipated. Amy reportedly begged for reassurance, asking if being a good mother was no longer enough, asking what she had done wrong, asking why everything she fought for seemed to be slipping away at once. Her voice, according to those who heard it, cracked repeatedly as she cried out her children's names. At some point during the breakdown, filming was briefly paused, not out of compassion, some claim, but to assess what to do next. When cameras resumed, Amy was still on the floor, still shaking, still crying. This is the portion of the footage that insiders say never should have existed, let alone been recorded. One production assistant reportedly turned away, unable to watch. Another allegedly asked whether the cameras could be shut down permanently for the day. The answer, at least initially, was no. Tammy Slaton was not scheduled to appear during this filming session. Her arrival later that day, sources say, was not planned, not scripted, and not coordinated for television. She was called in after Amy's condition worsened. And when Tammy entered the room and saw her sister in that state, witnesses say even she was visibly shaken. Tammy reportedly demanded to know why cameras were still present, asking producers whether they wanted Amy to die on camera, too. That moment, according to insiders, was the first time senior production staff seriously discussed whether the footage could ever be aired. Behind the scenes, tensions escalated rapidly. Some producers reportedly argued that the footage, while painful, was honest and reflected the real stakes of Amy's life. Others pushed back, saying it was exploitative and potentially dangerous. Amy, meanwhile, was reportedly inconsolable. Sources claimed she repeatedly asked if the show was the reason this was happening, if being on television had ruined her chance to be a good mother, and if quitting would make everything stop. By the end of the day, filming was shut down completely. The footage was flagged for internal review, and Amy was reportedly escorted away from the set by family members, not production staff. What happened next would never be shown to viewers. Over the following days, insiders say Amy spiraled emotionally. She allegedly refused to participate in scheduled filming, ignored calls, and sent messages to producers saying she wanted out, not just from the show, but from public life entirely. This is where the story splits into two realities. The one audiences saw and the one that was hidden. On television, Amy's storyline became quieter, vaguer, and noticeably restrained. Her struggles were framed as stress, exhaustion, and adjustment to motherhood. The language was careful, the details were missing. Entire conversations were edited out. According to sources familiar with the editing process, multiple episodes were restructured specifically to remove any reference to custody fears, legal implications, or the breakdown itself. Internally, however, the footage remained a point of contention. Some staff members reportedly watched it once and refused to view it again. Others described it as evidence of how far reality television had gone in prioritizing content over human well-being. One former employee later said that locking the footage away felt like burying a crime scene, while another argued that not airing it was the only ethical decision the network had made all season. Amy herself never publicly acknowledged what happened that day. But fans began to notice subtle changes. Her energy shifted. Her laughter seemed forced. Her appearances felt obligatory rather than joyful. Social media posts became sporadic and cryptic. In one post that was later deleted, Amy wrote that being strong didn't mean being safe and that sometimes doing your best still is tenor. At the time, few understood what she meant. Now, those words carry ashling weight. The never-aired footage remains locked away, unseen by the public, but its impact continues to ripple through the lives of those who were there. For Amy Slaton, that day marked the moment when the line between reality television and real-life consequences disappeared completely. For one, 1,000 sisters, it exposed a truth the show has never addressed openly. That behind the transformations, the humor, and the ratings' success lies a system capable of pushing vulnerable people to their breaking point, and then editing the evidence out of existence. And according to those who know what happened next, the worst consequences of that day were only beginning. In the days following the shutdown or filming, the atmosphere surrounding 1,000 sisters reportedly shifted in a way longtime crew members had never experienced before. What had once felt like a chaotic but familiar production environment suddenly became tense, guarded, and unusually quiet. According to multiple insiders, Amy Slaton's breakdown was not treated as an isolated emotional incident, but as a crisis that threatened the stability of the entire show. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Footage logs were reviewed line by line, and legal advisors were reportedly brought in to assess the risk of what had been captured. The question was no longer whether the footage was compelling television, but whether it could legally, ethically, or morally be shown at all. Amy, meanwhile, was nowhere to be found. Sources say she withdrew almost completely, staying with family and refusing direct contact with production. Messages sent to her reportedly went unanswered. And when she did respond, her tone was described as fearful, confused, and emotionally exhausted. One insider claims Amy expressed paranoia that the footage would somehow leak, telling a close friend that she felt trapped and exposed, as though the cameras had followed her into the most fragile moment of her life and refused to leave. What made the situation even more volatile was the growing involvement of outside authorities and advisors. While no formal custody ruling was made public, several sources insist that conversations about Amy's fitness as a primary caregiver had intensified behind the scenes. These discussions, according to insiders, were not driven by a single incident, but by a pattern of concern that had been building quietly for months. Amy's mental health struggles, exhaustion, and inability to cope under sustained pressure were reportedly being documented long before the breakdown ever happened. That day simply forced everything into.
Amy Slaton makes a startling announcement that may force her to leave her kids. Hi there, everybody. Greetings from another thrilling video. I'm Jennifer from 90 Day Insider, and I'm here to give you the most recent news, drama, and exclusive behind-scenes looks. Let's get started. Once again, the 10,000 sisters fan following has been rocked to its core. But this time it's not a sister feud erupting on camera or Tammy Slaton's most recent breakdown. No, Amy Slaton, the sister who so many people originally viewed as the family's trustworthy, stable heart, is the center of this storm. Fans are wondering about Amy's future as a mother, her role on the program, and even her emotional